Using aircraft carriers to fight drug traffickers, isn't that a joke? The real reason is simple. Wherever there is oil, there will be the US military. The US has surrounded Venezuela for nearly 3 months, yet still does not start a war. How Russia and China will act? Let's take a deep dive today. The USS Ford aircraft, leading more than 10 warships and over 10,000 troops, is on high alert in the Caribbean. Washington claims it wants to wipe out drug traffickers like Al-Qaeda, and it has already carried out more than 10 surgical strikes, bombing several ships it labeled as smuggling vessels without any trial, killing more than 60 people, but hasn't directly attacked Venezuela. Landing in Caracas and arresting Maduro sounds like something from the last century. Trump prefers maximum pressure, not conquest, but collapse. The US military presence is meant to create a sense of imminent danger, making opposition groups believe liberators are coming and encouraging internal rebellion. If Maduro loses his love, the US wins without fighting. This is modern gunboat diplomacy, using aircraft carriers as tools of psychological warfare. Economic sanctions have failed, coups have failed, and the Guaido two presidents farce ended in embarrassment. The US government has almost exhausted its options. All that's left is military pressure. But is that card still effective? Few know that the main driver of this campaign is Secretary of State Marco Rubio, a Cuban-American hardline anti-communist. He sees Maduro as Latin America's #1 troublemaker. Within the Trump administration, Rubio overruled the pragmatic officials who wanted to keep doing oil business, turning anti-drug and anti-terror slogans into weapons against Venezuela. Once Venezuela's criminal groups are labeled as foreign terrorist organizations, the President of the United States can invoke the Patriot Act to launch strikes without Congress approval, giving Washington a license to kill anywhere in the world. The small boats blown up in the Caribbean without trial were the first taste of this new license. This so-called war on drugs isn't just really about Venezuela, it's a signal to all of Latin America that Washington still claims control over its backyard. Colombia's president openly refused to join any invasion, and Mexico fears it could be next. In truth, the whole operation is a psychological and political show to gain maximum political leverage at minimum cost. Everybody knows Trump is a businessman. He may lack vision, but he understands cost. Before the Iraq War, George W. Bush promised it would cost only $50 to $60 billion. In reality, it drained $2.89 trillion and claimed over 500,000 lives. That money could have rebuilt America's energy system, created millions of jobs, or cleared all student debt. The war hollowed out the US economy and robbed a generation's future. Americans should hate war the most because they pay for it, while the profits go to the military-industrial complex. Venezuela's mountainous terrain makes it ideal for guerrilla warfare. If the US invades, it risks another Vietnam or Afghanistan, and once it breaks the country, it has to govern it. The cost of occupation and rebuilding would crush America's strained finances. Worse still, because there's oil. Venezuela holds the world's largest proven reserves. A war there would send global oil prices soaring 10 to 20%. For ordinary Americans, that means overnight price spikes at the gas pump. In the US, gasoline prices move inversely with the president's approval ratings. Trump's bragging point, reckon no fuel prices would vanish. Starting a faraway war just to anger voters would be political suicide. Of course, Washington can do the math. War costs money, peace makes money, but the question is, can the US government still control its own military? And whose money are they really spending? What if the politicians earn money from war? The world today is no longer what it was in 2003. The US is no longer the solo superpower, and Venezuela isn't an isolated Saddam Hussein. Behind it stand Russia and China. Russia has been Venezuela's key military ally since the Chavez era. Caracas has purchased over $4 billion in Russian arms, including Su-30 fighters. Moscow has even twice sent two 160 nuclear-capable bombers for joint exercises. Recently, Russia warned at the UN Security Council that any attack on Venezuela could trigger a regional disaster, and just days ago, 200 Wagner fighters reportedly arrived with equipment to support Maduro. China, on the other hand, provides the economic lifeline. Under heavy US sanctions, it was Chinese loans and investments that kept Venezuela's oil industry running and Maduro's government alive. At the UN, China also condemned America's unilateral military actions. Ironically, US pressure has only drawn Venezuela, Russia, China, and other Latin American countries closer together, turning a loose partnership into a unified front against American dominance. From the start, Washington's war on drugs has been psychological, not military. America's hesitation isn't mercy, of course. It's calculation. The cost of war is too high, the political risk is too heavy, and the potential gain may be too small. It's not just about knocking money, but also about realizing it can no longer act with impunity. Today's US government faces not just Venezuela, but a multiple world. On the other side of the chessboard sit Russia and China, two powers no longer willing to let Washington flip the table. This crisis around Venezuela is less a prelude to war and more an epitaph for the old order. It marks the end of the unipolar world and the rise of a new multipolar era. So whether the US strikes or not, both outcomes prove the same point. American hegemony is fading. If it fights, it risks another long, bloody quagmire that accelerates its decline. If it holds back, it admits even its own backyard is no longer secure. Perhaps restraint will make Washington look smarter. And maybe, just maybe, the world will stay at peace a little longer. Follow me an Eastern perspective to see the world out.